Word.
You silly guy.
I'm very silly. Welcome back, everybody.
It's a little goober.
Part 2.
Part 2.
Which is really funny.
Season 3.
We could have recorded this.
Oh my god, did your mic just touch that pillow?
No.
Oh, is your...
I'm holding it up with everything.
Dog.
You'll be hearing some, like, shaking. Wait, let me see how... Shake the thing real quick.
Yeah.
What does this feel like? Is that doing anything?
It's awful. It sounds awful.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like going up to 12 by itself.
Okay, I'm holding it like here. I think it'll be fine. If it shifts, it's fine.
If it shifts, blame Cooper. My mic's totally fine.
Stop.
Oh my god.
I swear, technical difficulties.
Just tighten the thing.
What? No.
So,
I can't. Okay.
Cooper tries to fix his microphone. I just wanted to take a second and just thank everyone who has been tuning in, especially the people who have been tuning in regularly and the people in our lives who see us every day and they tune in. We genuinely do appreciate you all. It's been somewhat of a rough year, starting off for both me and Cooper. But this podcast has been something that we've been able to put our energy into, and we just really appreciate you all having this kind of feedback, I guess, to this podcast. And if there's anything we can do, or if there's anything you guys want to see, please leave it down in the comments. But we do sincerely thank you here at Real Deal Podcast. Anyways, I think they figured out what's wrong with their equipment, so I'll get out of your hair and I'll let past me talk about Bojack. We appreciate you all. Christian, out. All right, we're back. There's some weird technical difficulties going on right now.
No.
Oh, yes.
A little bit, yeah. So... like I said, welcome back, part 2.
Part 2, it took us long enough.
Or if it's your first time and you haven't seen part 1.
Go watch part 1.
Go watch part 1.
You sillies.
But yeah, what's funny is most people would probably think, hey, they recorded part 2 like right after part 1.
We did not.
This has been like 3 weeks later.
Dude, we were so tired after that recording session.
We were like, I think it's time to stop. We got through 6 episodes. I think we're gonna work to do very quicker, zipping through.
Yeah,
episodes.
We're gonna try to get through these quick, so it's maybe even a keeping it short type length
so
episode.
we don't have like a part 3. We'll talk through them, but give them enough description. But we might not do like scene by scene. We'll just do like overall.
Yeah.
But no, Christian, what's been up with you, man? 2 weeks.
I mean, I've been working out, which has been good.
You guys wish we were video only. Seeing this guy,
I swear.
Champion.
I'm also gonna be working on a couple different podcasts, probably 1 or 2. It seems like in the future. That won't be like a voice or anything. I'll be editing and whatnot for them. But oh my god, this guy!
I'm sorry. I thought I'd be quiet.
You thought this plastic container was gonna be quiet, bro?
You keep talking. I'm gonna do it in the background.
For the viewers who want to know what's going on, Cooper just opened up a Tupperware box, like a food prep box, filled with meat and bread, and he took a bite, and it was probably the loudest bite I think I've ever heard, which you guys probably heard.
ASMR, man.
I don't like this guy anymore.
It's
Give me give me somebody new on the podcast.
I'll say my thing, I guess. It relates to the food, actually.
I can hear it settling.
It does settle. That's crazy. I went back home for a wedding, my sister's wedding. Really fun event. I see. Cool. Okay. And it was a really beautiful event. Really happy. She's up here in Nashville now, so I get to see her more often.
Yeah, me and your sister got married. It was really, it was eye-opening.
What happened at all. You don't know my sister. The only thing you guys have in common is you're both redheads.
There you go. That's all we needed.
But talking about the food, they had a lot of catering left over, and because since it was like our family's wedding, we obviously got the food because we paid for it, and they sent me home with like so much. So I'm no. I will share, but I hate this guy. I'm gonna be picky, man. This stuff is good. And so, but yeah, no, but I got so much food left over, and I'm just munching on it because it's like professionally made food.
We're sitting here recording a podcast episode in our college dorm, and he's eating catered food from a wedding he went to.
And delicious. But yeah, that's all I've been up to, man. That just wedding and school and.
We've got some good listeners of the podcast. It seems like people have been really enjoying it. And we are sorry for taking so long. Of course, with the new semester starting and whatnot, it's been a little weird. Everybody's been trying to get into a rhythm. This is probably the roughest semester start I think I've had.
To school?
Yeah, but I'm good now. I'm feeling great.
I'm doing great too. I'm enjoying the math.
I haven't had a soda in
Oh my god,
2 weeks. 3
I guess
weeks.
I'm doing so many things wrong.
And Cooper gave me a soda, very sweet of him, but I chose the root beer instead of the Coke, and now my stomach feels like it's on fire.
Root beer, no root beer, root beer. Oh no, mug root beer. Yeah, I gave him a drink, so if he keeps burping and stuff around the thing,
It's rough, actually. Yeah, I
blame.
didn't realize. That's the first thing I've had today.
We're gonna sue mug root beer.
It was an A&W root beer. I guess I wouldn't
It was
know that,
mug.
but
It wasn't A&W.
it was A&W.
No,
The can's in there,
Mug
dog.
and A&W are different.
Yes, and you gave me an A&W root beer.
You know what? Let's solve this. Hey, fella. I was going to get someone to grab it, but we're still in this debate now. We're having a lot of fun before we actually do the episode.
He's gonna come into
Proving
here.
you wrong.
He's gonna go grab it. It's gonna be A&W, and he's gonna write mug on it with a Sharpie or something. I'm telling you right now, viewers. Well, now that I have you guys just chilling here,
We don't need to worry about it.
why? Because it's an A&W.
No.
He said we don't need to worry about it. Yeah, right.
It was an A&W.
I told y'all I was right.
Normally, I think I'm right, but
Yeah, normally you think you're right, but
I think we should just
most
talk
of the time,
episode, man.
you're
I
not.
don't think we should talk about
Yeah.
root beer.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're back, part 2 of season 3. We left off with episode 7. Now we're starting with we left off with episode 6.
Right in the middle.
Jumping into episode 7, which is titled "Stop the Presses." Todd built a giant paper mache.
Paper mache.
What did I say?
Paper mache.
That sounds cooler though. Paper mache head of himself. A customer service rep gives Bojack some sound advice when he tries to cancel his newspaper subscription.
It's pretty interesting. The episode itself was a lot of like cutting back and forth from the adventure. I feel like Todd took a pretty big story point. Well, no, I guess not.
Giving Todd
it was more Bojack talking to the lead sales negotiator, and I think she did talk him into actually keeping the paper at the end of the episode.
Yeah, it's real funny. I think I love episodes though when it gets to be like pretty balanced of like Todd. Also, this leads into Todd-centered stuff throughout like the rest of the season with like him and his new girlfriend. And obviously he's still doing the
like friend, girlfriend, almost.
yeah, because they're not yet a thing, but like they've known each other for a long time. Now they've gotten back, and they're starting this business now with like the woman
Only Uber, basically.
only a women Uber driving business.
So that other women do not feel uncomfortable. But then
And then later they're like, wait a minute, but
the guys who are paying for it.
we should get guys to be there to help women feel safer.
It's awful. And and before that, the women who were driving the cars started feeling unsafe because guys were getting picked up. It's awful. It's silly. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's really yucky. But I think
this episode was a pretty fun, just kind of roller coaster. I mean, there's not a crazy amount of like story depth to it, I don't think.
there is something kind of big that happens.
What happens in it?
We jump into Honest Manacopita's relation with Bojack a bit more, and they actually
they do talk about that on the phone a lot about how he's like he wants to see more of her, but she wants to be this mysterious lady.
Yeah, and then he goes and sees her, and she's like a homebody. She's not like this whole.
She's got like a stain on her like tracksuit that she wears at the house, and she's like, "You don't want to know me," and he's like, "I do. I want to know every part of you. I want to know this part of you and the other part."
I like that Bojack does this, but then again, we've seen it before. Bojack gets really personal, and he's a really kind guy. He just happens to also suck
Yeah.
really bad.
He thinks he knows what he wants, and then for some reason it always isn't what he wants.
Yeah.
You're eating super far away from the mic. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and read the 8th episode, Old Antique. Bojack is up for a part in the David, is that Fincher's latest film?
Yeah, it's a rip on David Fincher.
Oh, that's right. He's a crab, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's his new latest film. Diane meets Mr. Peanut Butter, Mr. Peanut Butter's brother, and Todd takes the business in a new direction. And this is the one where he changes it so much that it turns into like a Oriental fruit basket, and that's what the movie is.
Yes, I remember that.
I'm pretty sure, at least. But I will say this is where we get to see Mr. Peanut Butter's home life a lot more, and his brother is like super depressing. But like he's a realist. He's not like just a guy. He's got stuff going on. He basically got the dog equivalent of cancer, and he's just trying to prep his brother in the only way he knows how. And he knows that Diane's more realist too, so he can talk to her about it. But it did seem I like that it came out of nowhere, which, I mean, obviously that news does always come out of nowhere. People's lives in this universe keep going.
You know what I really like is that Captain Peanut Butter, right, is his name.
Mm-hmm.
He's played by Weird Al. And
He was, yeah.
I love Weird Al.
I liked how serious he was for this role. I mean, he's a good actor. I want to see him in some really serious stuff.
I also like that the agency has a bit of a storyline in this one, because you got like Amanda Gecko kind of like fighting with Princess Carolyn about all this stuff. And I mean, Princess Carolyn at this point has a pretty solid business. She's got like assistants, she's got managers, but she is always kind of like
she's still the underdog in this
She's
story.
definitely floating by, with the other companies bigger. And it's also funny that we get to see, I forget his name all the time, the frog assistant.
Well, no, he's part of the company.
He's a part of it now. His dad was like the CEO or
is
something.
Is it Jimmy? It's something like that.
Oh, Jimmy, I have sticky hands. Something like that. Talks like that.
I have sticky hands.
But so I think that's just really cool. And
Randall.
Okay, did you like look that up?
No, I think that's his name.
I'm gonna say let's go with Randall.
Randy.
But I just like that it's like kind of
Something like that.
bit of mystery, because you also don't know what's all going on, and then stuff happens and it's like, because I mean I think the whole edge of the episode you're like, oh, like what is going on with this, like with the characters and stuff, and like what's going on with the business, and you see like power moves being made, and then she loses. Princess Carolyn loses at the end of the episode, which is.
And Judah is the only person there for her, but I think he gets fired, doesn't he?
I mean, she can't support anybody, so she has to let him go. It's cool we get to see, this will get picked up in, like, I think the very end of the episode, or season, where we see, I didn't know characters. Ethan, I think his name is.
Face, what does he look like? Is he human?
Red guy. He was a little boy from...
Ethan.
Ethan Around, I think it's what it's called.
Yeah,
he is like older. He's like, hey, Bojack, I wanted to bring up to you again this idea I had about you come back, because in the end of the show, originally he dies, and it's like...
He'd be a ghost, right?
He'd be like a ghost, and we take care of like these kids, because Ethan Around has adopted these kids. And Bojack just like neglects. He's like, dude, I really don't think that's a good idea. I think...
Well, no, originally he was like, that sounds great. Yeah. And it turned out that was not what he needed to do. So
yeah, and then we'll see later on how far that goes.
Yeah, how about? I mean, it goes pretty. It's pretty rough, actually. Just hearing him agree to this idea, because I think everybody's been there where they're like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, and they really do not think it is, and they don't have the heart to tell the person.
Yeah. We also have Bojack's point again, where he like loses, and he's like, not like losing, but he has like a really high with like, you know, him and Honest Manacopita in the last episode. Now he's kind of just lower again,
super low. Yeah.
But anyway, the next episode is titled "It's the Best Thing That Ever Happened." Bojack meets Princess Carolyn at Elephanty, leading to a night of soul searching as they help the staff impress a food critic. And so this one, I think this is a really, really funny episode. And this also has a bit of flashback.
Yeah, we have Princess Carolyn before she owned her own company. It's like when she just started out being an
She
agent.
just became like an agent again, and we talked about it before in the other prequel episode where it's like she had this fling with Bojack and the guy thing going on, and then next thing you know, like Bojack still neglects her, and this is like what led to him having the sucky Bojack Horseman show. But in this one, we get to see her kind of leading a bit more control in her life, and then her and Bojack have to go in this restaurant together, and he's kind of just like, you know, doing his thing. And the whole thing about this episode, though, is like it starts with the cold opening about them and their relationship, and her being his agent, like new agent, and then in this one, it's the present, and Bojack's like, you kind of screwed me on this. I wanted, like in the last episode, he wanted this thing, and she denied him this job, and that's why he's mad at her, and he wants to fire her. He's like, his whole episode is, I'm firing you. And she's like, come on, with all the things we've been through, like, you can't do this. And then, like, it's kind of paralleled into the sense of the episode that's happening with the restaurant failing. Because there's this big food critic, and everybody is leaving, and everyone, like, quits and goes down. And so him and her...
Gets stuck in the freezer, right?
They have to run the thing. Like, they have to run the whole kitchen now.
Yeah.
And then I think one of the funniest gags is that, like, this waiter or server gets told to, like, be the chef now. And he's like, I don't know how to chef. It's like, you have to. It's like, well, okay. And he's the chef now. And he's just, like, decently good. And then this one customer comes back in, and she's like, I've been waiting on my food for 45 minutes. And he's like, hey, no time for that. You have to get to tables 4 and 5. And she's like, oh, my gosh. I have to
Yeah, I like the gag where people just started actually helping, and then they had a whole new staff by the end of the show.
And they just, like, were, like, ironically, like, okay, I guess this is my job now.
And they do get stuck in the freezer.
They do get stuck in the freezer. I think they get stuck.
And Bojack's like, say 10 nice things about me, and Princess Carolyn's like, I could do that. And it's really fun. I like this kind of warm, tender moment with these two.
Yeah, and I could be wrong because I did watch it like before stuff. Does he keep her on?
I think he does. If I remember right. Let me check.
Yeah, I'm going back.
Yeah, they do.
They kind of have a talk, and they're like, "Will you stay through me?" And it's like, sure. Like, it's like, I won't do you wrong this time. And then that's basically the end of episode 9. It's just kind of like this big... I think it is another one of those, like, strong episodes. Like, the ones before were also kind of deep. Like, the other ones had important parts to it. Like, with Honest Manacopita. And the other one was, like, Todd and his girlfriend. And just getting... It feels a little repetitive with Bojack. But that's the kind of, like... I think that's what makes it so good. Is that for every new person, every new situation... He treats it with a certain...
you know what he's going to do, and whenever he deviates from the norm, it does make it feel very impactful.
Yeah.
Which is good. They're setting up a precedent for us to understand what he is, how he does things, and why he does things. But that does not mean that he cannot break that cycle, and that's what we hope for. Because he breaks it every once in a while. They kind of breadcrumb him breaking the cycle so that we are still interested and we still want him to break the cycle.
Yeah.
But you never know if he's going to or not.
Yeah.
But I think these last couple episodes haven't been crazy impactful to the story. They're very much side plots. But there is a couple towards the end of this that are very important to the rest of the story.
Very important. Yeah.
And number 10, episode 10, It's You. Mr. Peanut Butter announced the Oscar nominees. Bojack surrounds himself with admirers, but his real friendships are falling apart. I thought that this episode... Let me make sure I remember the right one. I thought it was very fun because, I mean... I don't like seeing Bojack get what he deserves, but, like, sometimes he needs to get kicked. Like, it's pretty rough.
Because he's throwing, like, this big party because he got nominated, and then they go, well, actually, you didn't get nominated. We just made up names for the nomination.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of funny. But he also gets, like, so big in himself because he's like, this is what he was kind of, like, manipulated into wanting because he didn't know what he wanted. All he really wanted was to be happy. If I could describe Bojack in like one word, I think he'd just be lonely. The guy's lonely. He just wants someone to like talk to and love and be
I would
loved.
use the word isolated. I think
Isolated?
he isolates himself quite a bit, especially in this episode. Just the idea that if you're backed into a corner, the best thing to do is to push everybody away.
Yeah.
And it's kind of spooky that he has that mentality about himself, because he doesn't necessarily need to have that mentality. He could just embrace the people he's with, and everything would be all right. But he's so in his head, and his narcissism is so bad that like he can't see any way around the frame.
I mean, yeah, you even see that in like this episode where after he throws a party and everyone's like kind of worried about him, he fills this space, the place he knows, his house, with people who don't even like know him. Just a party, and they go like, "These aren't even your friends." He goes, "These are my friends. I know them." Couldn't name a single one.
Couldn't name one of them. It's just really interesting that like he would rather in this episode have these random people who admire him, the thing that he has hated for most of the series, than have these close interpersonal relationships with friends and family. Dude, it's just so repetitive and spooky that he does this.
Yeah, and then I mean, so the first half kind of shows like,
I'm Mr. Peanut Butter, right?
the first half shows kind of like what happens presently, and the other half is like going back to what happened, because we see it in at the midpoint. Mr. Peanut Butter calls Bojack and is like, "Well, here's some bad news. You actually didn't get nominated." And then they show the whole routine of Mr. Peanut Butter is. I think the whole situation was whoever was supposed to host the Oscars fell down in their old.
No. What happened was he went to go to the old Halloween store, and then he walked out into the street and got hit by a bus.
Right, and I think that was a cool subversion, because we thought that he was going to break his bone, because Andrew Garfield broke off his bones in the first season, and then in this one he just gets hit by like a bus.
They need to get a floor put in that place, man.
And then him and Todd I mean, Mr. Peanut Butter is going to be saying the nominations, but Todd is like his assistant and his good friend now. But then he gets a call from his brother who's going through like this surgery, and it stresses him out. And then he like loses the notes, the card with all the names on it. So him and Todd have to make up just names that they were like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a good thing for the movie or something." So they just put their names in there, and then they read it off, and then everyone like at first it's like, okay, and then there's like a big like uproar about like how that is wrong, and everyone like goes nuts about it. But then he has to tell Bojack like, yeah, you didn't get nominated, and it actually kind of hurts him. But something kind of cool, like, I mean, even though it's a little roller coastery with the day with Bojack, at least we do see some upside with Princess Carolyn, because she gets a call back from oh gosh, I forget. I don't know character names very well. Ralph. Ralph is no. See, I remember now. Ralph wasn't the frog. He was the rat that she dates.
Oh, you're right. Randy's the frog.
I'm gonna say Percy.
You're definitely wrong.
Are we gonna fact check the frog from BoJack Horseman? I want to say Percy. I mean, I wasn't right about the AMW, so I could be wrong about this too.
So, it's Charlie. We were both wrong. Charlie Witherspoon.
That makes more sense, yeah.
Voiced by Ralph.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. By Raphael Bob Waxberg.
I don't know who that is.
He's a tree frog, and he's the son of Mr. Witherspoon. We're both wrong. That means you have to give me a slice of meat.
I can give you a slider.
I'll take a slider, dog.
You can have the small one.
Oh, so gracious is he.
But yeah. She calls Ralph, and we see him on the speed date, and he like makes up this whole fake story, and he's just like, "I'm just messing with you. I actually never fall in love with nobody. Yeah, I love to go on a date." And we're like, "Oh, dang." But then it kind of shows us the last couple scenes. It's like Bojack talking with Todd and talking about like his house, and he kind of has this big argument with Todd, because Todd probably talks about how crappy of a person Bojack was.
And he hasn't really seen. They've been separated for a minute. In
This whole season, they really have been like separated. Besides like the beginning, where they were like in the hotel together. Even that, they were separated. And so Todd finally lets it out after these like seasons of carrying different burdens. He's like, all this stuff that you've done to me, man, you're just using me. So Bojack, when he probably needs, but that's the thing about Bojack. Even when he's at his lowest, he doesn't really like to ask for help, unless it's like someone he really cares about. Someone like Todd, who his relationship is that he kind of like jokingly belittles or can abuse and use in his own way. Todd's like, I'm not doing that no more, man. You messed me up.
I like that Todd says, for all the things you do, it's not the alcoholism, it's not the drugs that you do, it's you. You are the issue. You are the problem. Nothing you do is anything that is the issue. It is you, yourself, Bojack Horseman. And that's rough.
Pretty realistic, man. It happens. Some people are just personality-wise, and it sucks. Episode 11, if this is one I think it is, this one hits deep. That's too much. Sorry, that's too much, man. On a drug-fueled bender, Bojack and Sarah Lynn crash an AA meeting, and Bojack decides to make amends with the people he's hurt. This episode is both really funny, in my opinion, really important to the overall season, and one of the best episodes of the whole show.
It's definitely important for the rest of the show, too. It's about as important as it gets.
I also mean, like, on a Sarah Lynn timeline, this is just, like, real big for her. But, I mean, the episode starts off with us thinking that Sarah Lynn's gotten a little better. She's living her life. She's trying to stay out of the press. She's, like, making healthy stuff for her. She's kind of just, like, she seems clean. And she seems like she's finally doing better. And we see, like, that she's marked off that she's 9 months sober. And then she gets a call from Bojack, which immediately, like, wrecks her life.
Yeah, it's
but
awful.
She's so happy to go back to it, though, I guess. Because that's all she knows. And I think it's also, who knows if someone just said, hey, do this, and she would jump on it. But someone as trusting as in her life as Bojack.
Yeah, basically her dad.
Who she looked up to as, like, her father figure. Because she was on the show when she was, like, what, 3 years old? Mm-hmm. And so if he was a better figure for her, she could have turned out so much different. But because he was her influence, he was definitely.
He's the reason she got hooked on things, because the first alcoholic beverage she had was vodka that he snuck into the show in a water bottle.
And he had blamed the hairdresser.
Charlotte, right? No. Charlotte,
I think. No, Charlotte's the name of the dear lady.
See,
hairdresser woman. So as you can tell, we're not the biggest fans of Bojack.
I'm a huge fan of Bojack.
You get a pass because you're like forgetful. But nah, I mean this whole episode, is basically what they do. I don't know if anyone has any side stuff. I think it's just Bojack and Sarah Lynn. I mean, you might see other characters.
Yeah, briefly talking to those two characters.
But it's a whole Bojack episode, which is like when you know
Sharon, not Charlotte.
Sharon, that's not too far off. But yeah, you know when like an episode is all one character, it's super important.
Especially because like this is the first time we've seen Sarah Lynn in a minute, which is like it's just really really upsetting how one phone call can just destroy 9 months of work.
But
it's so selfish of Bojack to do it, dude.
I do like that she does go to the AA meeting to accept her award because she still feels like she earned it.
I mean, but did she? You know what I mean? Like, you didn't do the 9 months of work. You did 8 months and however many days. I don't know. It feels like if the other AA people knew about it, it would be even worse.
Well, what's sad is Bojack has his own speech of his own at the AA meeting. He like interrupts everybody and says his problems. He's like, "You guys think you guys have messed up with drinking? Drinking has messed up me way worse."
Yeah, he always has a proverbial like dick measuring contest with his trauma and his alcoholism and his drug abuse. It seems like that's almost something he takes pride in, which is really gross, and it really sucks that he does.
I guess when how he feels is that he knows that he's gonna be judged or not actually have anything great, so he can at least be the best of the worst.
It's just rough, man. Oh, they do sneak into Mr. Peanut Butter's place and they dress up as Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter.
And they also
That's pretty funny.
That was pretty funny. They also go see Anna Spanakopita, and he just confesses to her, like, he basically calls her out because, I mean, she's walked away from him again because he didn't win the Oscar, and we didn't really talk about it in the episode before, but in the last episode when he didn't win the Oscar, even though she said that, like, he was more than just, like, the Oscar nominator, and because he totally, like, messed with her too, like, and she did with him, because at first she represented everybody who did the Oscars, so she'd never lose. Her career was perfect. But then he walks out on her and she goes, you know what? I just want you to win the Oscar. And then he doesn't win. He's not even nominated. And she goes, never mind. This is what I'm here for. This is my career. You aren't a page in my book anymore. Like, I shouldn't be focusing on you. And he gets hurt by that. Respectfully, rightfully so. That is a bit messed up on her part. But also, Bojack takes that very unlightly.
And she, like, kind of trauma dumps on him, but, like, he doesn't remember exactly what she said.
Yeah.
They see Princess Carolyn and Ralph, which is really upsetting. But this episode's a bit very much just, like, him burning all of these bridges by going on this bender. Mm-hmm. And his self-loathing has now spread to basically everyone else. It's so rough to watch these characters go through this.
I think one of the main ones, which is the big one that one looks at, is that when he goes to see Penny, because he talks about it with Sarah Lynn, and he's like, I can't do that. That's really messed up. That's the one person, like all these other people, sure, I broke bridges with, like, broke faith with them, but this person, I, like, ruined her life. Like, he thinks that what he did is what represents her now, like who she is.
Which is also selfish. The idea that when Bojack comes into your life, that's all that defines you is your bad experience with him. Mm-hmm. When really she's somewhat moved on from it.
I mean, obviously for her, there's trauma, but she walked past it. She said, I'm not going to let that person stay in my life. And so they go see her at college, like in these little, I think it's kind of funny, like tuxedo, like, yeah, we're not tuxedo, like trench coats and fedoras and spy on her. And she's doing great. Like, she's living a good time. And they're like, maybe we should just leave. Like, I don't think I need to actually forgive her. Like, I love someone said this in a different podcast I was listening to. They call it zero contact, where there isn't necessarily any closure for the person, but it's just you haven't talked to them at all, and for you that's okay. That's enough. It's a perfect balance, and you don't think of them and they don't think of you, and they're kind of out of your life, and the thought of that person or that situation really brings back any feeling, and that's when you don't want. So they basically are the definition. They create zero contact, and they don't worry about it anymore, and that's kind of what Penny
basically tear a chapter out of their book.
Yeah, and that's kind of what Penny does with Bojack. But because when he does accidentally fall and she sees him, she does remember that this guy did something terrible to me, and I was young and I was influenced easily by this person, and she runs, rightfully so, and she'll be fine. But right now, that was awful to just relive, and some people just don't realize.
I dropped something on my microphone stand.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it definitely made a big sound, so I'm going to have to cut that out.
Nah, leave it in, man. Leave it in.
Yeah, leave it in.
We're hardcore.
Can we talk about the observatory scene?
The end scene?
Because that scene is probably the second or third biggest scene in the entire series.
Yeah, let's talk about it, man. That's a big one.
They sit down in an observatory while things are being projected, and they just talk.
I like that it's like a bit of a silhouette.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just a galaxy. But they talk about their relationship with each other and just what's been going on. And Bojack asks something of Sarah Lynn, and she doesn't say anything. And Bojack, literally the last words of this are, Sir Lin. You know, and that's just such a powerful. She died because of him. The heroin that he gave her, that was Bojack branded. He directly killed a very, very close friend to him. And it's just such a mournful and impactful scene that actually shapes the rest of the series. It's beautiful. It's so well done.
It's also crazy that he doesn't realize that she passed.
Yeah.
And her last, I love that, also on her sake, her last words are, I want to be an architect.
Yeah.
And it's like what she always wanted to do, and her family.
She wanted to do that from like early.
And because she said it when she was on set in an interview, or when she was young, and people like Bojack and Herb and even like her parents really influenced her to be an actress. And we saw a clip from like season 2, I think, where she was a teenager and Bojack came to see her, and she's talking about how the scene is whatever and she's okay with it, but she still kind of has to know acting. And instead of like coping with her and actually, or even just talking with her like a normal person,
Yeah.
he brings her a script for her to read and maybe star in, and so she's forced to still stay in the acting.
She is the cautionary tale of child actors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad that this woman, this real woman, was a sex icon, a singer, an actress, against basically her own wishes, became addicted to drugs because of the things that she was pushed into, died by the same drugs and the same person who exposed her to that, and she never gets closure. She wanted to die in the way of dying for no reason, per se. She didn't want this grand remembrance of her. She wanted to be somebody who could just take pride in what they did. And it's pretty sad, because you should never feel bad about dying for no reason. Dying for nothing, rather. Because in all honesty, that's how most of us are going to go. And it's just a beautiful tale of somebody who was put down the wrong track of life, and she trusted too much, and she was hurt by the people she trusted. And it's literally a wrap up on her character. Sarah Lynn doesn't come back for a long time,
Just like,
except in like, you know, obviously like flashbacks and stuff later.
And
but I don't think she's in the next season.
Flashbacks in the finale, man. I think that's all it is.
Yeah, it's just a beautifully silhouetted kind of image of her, where she was all of these things she didn't want to be, and she was these awful habits that everybody had an issue with because they gave it to her. She was put down when she wanted to be better. She was harassed when she wanted to be better. But when she was not better, she was harassed for doing that. And when she wanted to step away from the spotlight, she's harassed. And whenever she was still in the spotlight, she was getting harassed. There's just no way out. Genuinely, her character felt like there was no way out for her. And the way that she went, and the reason she went out, and the fact that Bojack is the one who did it, sets a huge precedent for his character for the rest of the series. And this is what I think is one of the biggest moments in a TV show ever. I mean, it was so impactful. Especially because we spent the whole episode with her. We spent, 30 minutes, 27 minutes with this character who felt real, a really articulated, real human being who was killed by real problems that real people have. It was just hard. The next episode.
Yeah, I don't want to be that one, be like, hey. But yeah, no, I mean, how do you transition from that? But
I know.
Episode 12.
Episode 12.
That went well. Whoops. Mr. Peanut Butter, obviously they're like fictional character, fictional stuff, real time
really,
values.
Yeah, hit the heart.
Real stuff that like hits you, like real feelings. But it's also an episode. But yeah. So we don't just jump away from it. She does have her legacy, kind of some impact in the final episode. But that went well. Mr. Peanut Butter saves the day. Todd gets exciting news. Bojack, Diane, and Princess Carolyn pursue new opportunities. And I mean, we do see Carolyn in this episode, like we were talking about.
We do.
The first scene is literally what I was talking about, where she talks to Bojack about all this stuff and is like kind of going a little insane with like all the pressure she's doing and stuff. And and let's be honest, she loved that Bojack showed up. She was so happy.
Yeah.
But he wasn't there really to see her. He used that kind of as like an excuse. He wanted
I know you. We're friends.
Yeah,
You want to do this? You want to do the script?
for me, and she's like, I'll take a look at it, sure.
She puts on a pile of other offers she's gotten. It's just, this could have been a moment where he came and talked to her and just was like, I support you. You're doing good. And that would have probably put her on the right track, honestly. It's insane how often we impact people with the things we say. And the idea that, like, we could impact each other in any way. You never know how people think about you, really. So this is one of those things that it just puts it right in our face that the timeline could have changed if Bojack had been better. Bojack hates for real on this episode.
And then we have a little bit of a joking thing happening in this next segment where character actress Margot Martindale is still on the run from authorities, and she runs into, I think it's like the Coast Guard and also a bit of like a cruise ship, and she spills like tons, I mean like literal tons of spaghetti in the water, and it's like, oh, if only we had spaghetti strainer. And
Oh, yeah.
cool little nod to the business that Todd and I think it's a cool little segue to what Todd and Miss Printer are working on now, which is their women Uber driver service, and they're talking about like this is still like not
It's a big deal.
Great.
It's something that they still want to do, though.
yeah, and then also they have the whole issue with like their whole business is basically kind of like messing up, but they have to probably like the whole big thing is that they have all these crazy ideas, Mr. Peanut Butter, like spaghetti strainers and the women Uber. I think it's called Cabra Cadabra.
Yeah.
Is what it's called. And they're like, oh, these are gonna work out fine, and then now it's all crashing down. Like the literal spaghetti that was spilled is about to like destroy the Atlantic like city, the underground city we saw in a previous episode, and they're gonna get like sued for it and stuff. And then the Cabra Cadabra, all the women female drivers feel like super like uncomfortable now.
Yeah.
And then we see, so that's that other side, like B plot, and then we go back to the A plot, and Bojack's still processing the funeral. Like he's about to go to the funeral for Sarah Lynn, but he doesn't cope, man. He hops into the next thing. He tries to do a little bit of coping by like
By watching the show.
watching the show, and then he gets the idea to call Ethan, you know, the kid on the show who was hoping to do like the show Ethan and Around, and he calls him up and he's like, hey man, I'd love to do the show with you, and he's like, are you like being serious with me, or are you like saying that just to like say that? He's like, no, I will do it, and he quits. Ethan quits his job, his stable lifestyle, and he has family, and he's just like, all right, I'm gonna go to LA with you and we're gonna do this thing.
It's really, really sad.
Yeah.
Because literally the only reason he's reaching out is because of Sarah Lynn's death, and he's trying to get closer with some of the people from his past life.
Yeah.
We see Ralph and Princess Carolyn, not Mrs. Carolyn.
Yeah.
And then we also see Peanut Butter and Diane talking for a bit. Mm-hmm. They go on like a double date. It's pretty casual. It's pretty cash.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting because, like, Ethan basically ruined his life to come. Him and his family. He has 2 kids and a wife.
Just to hop on a dream that probably won't go nowhere.
That is rough. And then the company works out, right? It works out for Todd, or something works out for Todd.
They make
and he
a new
gets $8 million.
Yeah, they make a new investment where, even though there were some issues with Cabra Cadabra, they still have like, it's very successful.
Yeah.
And so they still get like a big old check. And I think what it is like I forget if they go for bankrupt or they get bought out. But wherever it is, Todd, Mr. Peanut Butter, and is her name Erica?
No, Erica's that chick that's always off screen. Emily.
Emily. See, we need to know names better. But Todd, Emily, and Mr. Peanut Butter, because it was Emily's idea initially, were all shareholders of the business. They get bought out, and they get like millions of dollars. And so
$8 million each for 1/3 of the company.
I know that later Todd spends all his $8 million as like a tip on accident, and he goes, "Oops, I paid $8 million on my food. I guess I'm broke again."
It was pretty funny.
That was a pretty good Todd impression.
That was a pretty good Todd impression. I do Jesse Pinkman because they're the same person.
Oops, I'm Jesse, but I'm cooking meth, Mr. White.
You should have just done
now,
oops, I spent $8 million on my thing.
Oops,
bitch.
Oops, I spent $8 million on meth. Oh no.
Oh no.
Yeah, you have to add a little bit
You
of like an
spent
accent.
$8 million on meth.
That's what a talking dog told me to do, Mr. White.
Mr. White,
I was in
help.
need. I was in Need for Speed, Mr. White. Remember that movie?
Remember how funny it was back in the day?
Jesse, I don't remember that movie.
Jesse, I'm Hartwell White. I don't remember the movie.
I'm Heisenberg now.
And then at the end of this episode,
Yeah.
Bojack is driving out in the countryside, and
He bails, man. Like
he was gonna kill himself.
Well,
he let the wheel go.
I'm saying like before that. Like I mean, I want to like jump.
On everybody's problems.
He
just bails.
He's doing the show. Like him and Ethan got production going. They're rolling, and they get like one of the daughters. Because the whole thing about the show is that he's doing. It's gonna be like basically a copy of Horsing Around, but he's taking care of these new girls, and one of them puts on a head, and she's like
little horses.
The new looking, kind of like Sarah Lynn in a bit. And he just freaks out, panic attack, and he just bails.
Immediately leaves. It's pretty awful. But in the fashion of Secretariat, you run and you don't look back.
He did what he told him, yeah.
And it was interesting and powerful because while he's driving, and he literally lets go of the wheel, and he was gonna let nature do its thing. He sees a pack of horses running, and he stops and looks at them.
That's the last shot. That's the end shot.
And it's just so powerful. I mean,
it's a sign of hope.
It is a sign of hope. And of course, there are 4 more seasons, so we'll see how much that hope gets us.
3.
There are 3 more seasons.
4, 5, 6. 3 more seasons. Better and better and better. I think they get better and better and better.
I think they get amazing. Yeah, I think they get a lot better.
Because I think they finally find like their footing. I mean,
yeah.
I think they did by season 2, but I think they just really get super strong.
And BoJack Horseman is an experience, and if you haven't seen the show, please watch the show. It's so good. We do also thank everybody who's had our support and has been supportive of the podcast. I know that we're not the most... we don't keep up to date every week, but we are trying. We are trying to get this whole college and video and company maybe and podcast.
I can't talk about the company yet. We'll talk about something later.
Yes.
We're also, I guess, a little insight on the company thing. We're not starting the company per se. We are like partners in the
start of a company, perhaps.
Yeah. We're like different programs, but that's all I can say. Can't talk anything else.
I hope that all of you who have listened have an amazing day.
Don't have a Bojack day.
Don't have a Bojack day.
Have a Todd day.
Have a Todd day. Remember that in the grand scheme of things, if you take 300 dots and make 10 of them red, those are your bad days. They don't look that scary and intimidating anymore. I hope you all have an amazing day. Analogy. I was Christian.
I am Cooper.
I guess I'm someone else now.
Who are you?
I don't know,
Ed
but
Sheeran.
I'm a part of the Real
Deal
podcast.
Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Ow.
Mwah.